Welcome back to the AI-led Growth Summit. Over the next 3 days, we'll explore AI's impact on product-led, partner-led, marketing, sales, and community-led growth, and many more GTM trends. With over 50 CXOs and dozens of AI technologies demos, this is where B2B's future takes shape. How are you doing, all our panelists?
Good.
Very good.
Great.
Is anyone
Excited.
excited at all?
Woo!
Yep.
Let's do this.
Amazing. Everyone who's watching, please follow along the conversation in our HSC Slack events channel. And just check out on the upper right corner, you see a lot of innovative demos, innovative sponsors. Check them out. Don't forget it. And kick things off, we have Jonathan Milne with the AI Marketing-Led Growth panel. Jonathan is a VP of Marketing Services at DemandSpring, where he helps companies integrate AI surprise into their marketing strategies. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here today. And yes, I am real and not an AI avatar, or am I? We'll soon find out.
With that background, we never know, right?
Never know this. Yeah, exactly.
I am not real. This is the Amanda avatar. So just FYI.
Awesome.
One question from me, and just passing the microphone to you. Jonathan, what's one AI trend that will define marketing for 2025?
Ooh, that's going to be my last question for the group today. But I think 2025, we're going to see a very interesting trend around the agentic AI around browser-based AI. So the idea of using compute use, or the idea that AI can take control over a computer and enable us to do a whole bunch of things that we're not able to do before. I think is going to be a pretty interesting trend, and we're going to see a lot more about it. And the limited barrier this year is going to be the cost. So once they get the cost down, you're going to see this go up and up in use.
Interesting. Didn't think about it this way. You got the floor, and yeah, let's kick things off.
Awesome. Well, I thought I'd introduce our panelists. So a little bit about myself and DemandSpring. We are a leading B2B marketing consulting firm that works with visionary marketing and revenue leaders to help drive AI-led growth strategies and enable them to optimize their marketing automation platforms, including Marketo, HubSpot, and Salesforce. So I'm sure if you're a marketing person here on this call, you probably use one of those platforms and need some help. But let's jump into our panelists. In no particular order, let's start off with our first panelist, Amanda Kalo, CEO and founder of OneMind and former founder and CEO of 6sense. Amanda's leadership is fueled by a mission to create technology that drives growth and innovation while elevating the human experience. She is redefining the future of B2B and go-to-market strategies by replacing sales teams with AI superhumans. Intelligent, human-like AI that engages prospects, qualify, pitch, demo, and close deals with unparalleled accuracy, efficiency, and buyer delight. Next, please help me welcome Nalin Sathamal, co-founder and CEO of Storylane. Nalin leads Storylane, an agentic demo automation platform that helps marketing and sales teams deliver powerful, personalized demos at scale. With a strong background in both tech and business, he focuses on driving innovation solutions for better customer engagement and measurable growth. We also have Robin Daniels, Chief Business Officer at Sensei. Robin brings extensive leadership experience from Silicon Valley, having guided high-growth tech companies through key transformations. At Sensei, he focuses on strategic partnerships, go-to-market execution, and creating a culture where innovation thrives. And did Mark join us as well? Do I see Mark? Yeah, all right. Finally, we have Mark Staus, a former big company CMO and agency leader, who is among the first in B2B to prove that marketing multiplier is part of the go-to-market strategy. Today, he serves as CEO of Proof Analytics, a causal AI platform that helps companies across industries analyze their data and drive tangible results. Now, the only reason why we do these demos is sometimes you wonder, why do we have these people here to speak? And based on these backgrounds, I think you can appreciate we have a pretty cool panel today. So one of my favorite questions to ask people that I've never met before is how and when they kind of had their first aha moment with AI, and when did you realize this technology is not like previous technology generations? When did you kind of have that breakthrough of that AI is something you need to lean into? I'll just open up to the panel.
I can go.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love that it wasn't on your prep list of questions, but let's do it. Keep us on our toes, Jonathan. I love it. I mean, obviously, the first thing I think of is, I took some time off. I had 4 years from when I was at Six Sense to coming into One Mind. And the first time I ever experienced the product that I then took over was my aha moment and brought me off the bench. I literally said I was retired, I was done, I was, a stay-at-home mom. But if you're a stay-at-home parent of any kind, that is the single hardest job on the planet. Going back to work was a lot easier. But the moment that I realized I could have full conversations with an AI and it could transpose like the limitations of what humans could do today. I mean, for me, it was the beginning. It was just an avatar. It barely looked like a human. It had massive delays. Like it was a mess as a product, over a year plus ago. But that was the moment I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to change everything. If we can, fix these like small pieces of the inefficiencies, it was game changing for sales and marketing. So it brought me off the bench to say I had to come back to work and put my suit back on.
I can go next. My moment probably came when I was working at LinkedIn just a few years back. I was working on the keynote in 2017 for our big conference, and a big theme of that keynote was around AI and how we're going to use AI in our products. And it was more of a visionary keynote than what was actually reality today. But the main theme was we framed it as kind of 1,000 to 10 to 1, meaning that because of course it's a hiring platform in many ways is what LinkedIn is. And so most recruiters are overwhelmed with the amount of applicants that come into any given scenario. And we kept saying, well, AI should be so good that it should basically be able to get from, let's say, 1,000 candidates based on their skills and backgrounds and expertise and all this kind of stuff down to like the 10 best candidates. And then that's where the human comes in. And so you have basically, instead of a recruiter or talent manager sifting through thousands of resumes and talking to a bunch of people that are really not suitable for the role, AI should be able to do the majority of that work, so you can spend time on the quality that really matters. And to me, it's like feels like now we're finally here, like to that point. But it took us a while to get there. But to me, that was really a moment of that. This will become a superpower for humans if we can make this a reality. It feels like here in 25, we're more or less there, but it took us a while to get there. But that was my moment.
Love it, Robin. I had a friend where we're doing resumes for them, and one of the things we asked AI is
Mm.
who does not fit the profile but might make a very interesting candidate, right? That outlier.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
turned
yeah.
out the outlier was who they hired, right? It was very interesting.
Interesting, interesting, interesting. Yeah.
How about you, Nell?
Yep, I can go. So I've been a technologist for a long time, probably been involved with my own AI systems. So I think my first aha, I would say, is like back when I was in Amazon building an AI system in 2011-10 time period. I think we used to build out like a recognition. You can scan your camera with your phone, identify
Mm.
something, and puts a buy button. You can go buy it, right? It was trained with ML AI. This was before Gen AI. So we knew this is powerful, and people building like with NVIDIA's and everything, how we can make it powerful. That was the time that CUDA was there. I think it moved from one modality, like images or text, and it became multimodal, right? Where you can combine voice and text. And that happened like a few years back. I think that was the moment when I felt like when you can start making like multimodal predictions through this, it's super powerful. What that means is you can do voice cloning. What you can do is like you can do avatar talking, right? And then it became more like realistic around it, where you can, as a human, you can start interacting with it more and more, moving from a text. So for me, that was the moment. I think it started way back, but then it solidified really when it became multimodal, pretty much in our applications.
All right. And I don't see Mark's face. Am I missed? There he is.
Sorry about that, guys. I was having some technical problems getting in, but I was able to hear, right?
Awesome.
Hey,
So
Mark.
I'll say this: this is what Robin was talking about, and what you guys were talking about is actually closely mirrored by the rise of AI-powered buyer bots in the enterprise, right? That is essentially doing a scan and deciding on whether or not you're a good vendor or a bad vendor, and whether you provide good information, truthful information, all that kind of stuff, right? And if you are, then you'll be elevated up, and if you aren't, you won't even know that there was an opportunity, right? So, I mean, it's very similar.
Well, let's double down on that comment then, Mark. There's a lot of discussion and technology we're seeing around the whole buyer process, and we're wondering, is human-led sales obsolete? Do we still need them? Is it going to be just AI helping it, or do we need to balance this? So now, why don't we start with you on your thoughts around that kind of shift?
Sure. This is one of the favorite topics and kind of premise of why it's totally started itself in some ways, right? So short answer is I don't think humans will become obsolete. People buy from people, but I think what is going to change is the line that we are drawing today has shifted. What that means is like if you look at it earlier, right? So people will start like talking to sales very early on. This is like a decade back. That line is shifting a lot today. I mean, there's a study from Gartner which talks about like 70% of the people don't want to talk to sales. We don't wake up saying that, hey, I'm excited talking to sales. 10 people, I'm going to make a phone call to them, right? So I believe that's more like 95% today, right? In the last 2 years, it's probably, and it's going to get more and more. So in the entire process, what will happen is, people would want to identify as a buyer, right? I want to pick the top two people. I want to have a meaningful conversation. That's what is going to happen more and more. And then when I say meaningful conversation, it's about as a product specialist, that role would be understanding deeper about your product so that I can make a purchase decision. So more towards later in the cycle is when they will start talking to sales teams. And you're not going to swipe 50,000 if you're going to buy a $50,000 product, it's not something that you would buy without talking to someone still, right? You would still talk to someone later in the stages, but you would still understand, in terms of what your product is offering. Right now, there's a lot of noise with any market you say. There is so much software out there. So as a buyer, you're inundated with too much information. So in my opinion, that's where basically AI is going to help them. So the buyer is able to navigate this very easily and make those kind of decisions. Good example, I would say, if you are looking for a software today, you can ask OpenAI today, hey, here is my 8 vendors. Give me a full detailed report. It will give you automatically. Now you can pick the top 3 from there, and without even talking, have you yourself or an agent go and talk to the other agent on the website itself and get to know like who's my top vendor I want to talk to. So that's going to happen. And then you will finally start having a conversation with the salesperson there. So the whole paradigm of like outbound SDR is already changing, right? Like there is a lot of AI SDR tools out there. In my opinion, inbound SDR will also become like challenged a lot more. People will talk to avatars. People will understand what your product is doing very quickly. And it's already happening. That's a trend that I see that's going to happen a lot in 2025. And then once you cross that, then that's when basically they'll start to have kind of your sales engineers, product specialists, where you start getting to understand the product itself. That wedge is going to keep coming down quite a lot, I would say.
I mean, you also have, I think, I agree with that. I think B2B behavior oftentimes mirrors consumer behavior, but lags behind a few years in my experience, 5, 10 years behind. And so if you think about your personal life, how often do you really speak on the phone to people anymore? Rarely, right? You speak to people on the phone if they're really close, right? Like people who are in your inner circle. But other than that, you text, right, back and forth. And I feel like the B2B experience and buying is going to be very similar. We're going to text probably with bots more than ever, right? Because they can hone us down. But then the final mile, maybe that's when you pick up the phone and speak to somebody. But the idea of actually early in the phase speaking to an AI bot on the phone, which I think I keep getting inundated with people who want to sell me an AI SDR platform. Like, I don't want to speak to an AI. I mean, it just sounds awful to me, but maybe on text, right, or chat or something that could work, like to hone it down. But the final stages, I think you do want that human involved, at least in the mid to upper mid market. Maybe not in the SMB space as much because the ticket sizes are small, but I suspect that it'll get to that point very much as it's gone in our personal lives where we just text more than we actually speak anymore. I don't know. I could be wrong. That's my feeling of where it's going.
I think I have a little bit of a spicy take on what you just said, but like, do they want to talk? So I agree, like the outbound phone, like let's look at it from the bow tie perspective of Winning by Design's bow tie, right? There's like the top of the funnel all the way through. Go to market doesn't just end at the sale. It goes all the way through to customer success and upsell and renewal, right? I think the top of the funnel, the outbound is kind of a race to the bottom in a lot of ways, like you said, like nobody wants to pick up that cold call to have that conversation over the phone. And, while it's hyper personalized, there is a lot of regulation and things that are happening that people try to identify. I think it's a tough world. So I feel for those vendors that are in that world. But when your buyer is coming in and leaning in and said, okay, I'm thinking about this now and I'm considering this, who gets up in the morning and ever says, oh my God, I can't wait for that sales pitch with the sales rep? Said no one ever. They want to talk to a salesperson. So my favorite thing when people ask me, don't we need to have the human in the loop because people want to buy from people? And, you know, I'm like, people want to have relationships with people. I want to have connection and community with other go-to-market leaders, other executives, other founders that, you know, I want community with, but those aren't the people that I'm trying to buy CRM from tomorrow or buy the next tool from tomorrow. I'm not trying to build a relationship with that salesperson. So our thesis is that shift the control from your buyer's from the seller's pocket to the buyers to give them information and in the context and relevance that they want when they want it in any channel. And it's not just a text or it's not just text. It has to be like a full demo. It has to be able to show the slides, show the information, and be empathetic. Like I think the world we're moving towards is not just like, what's your answer to this? What's the agent? But listen to my needs, as like Jocko, Winning by Design would say, uncover the pain, uncover the impact, and then give me the best. And when you do that in the moment, give me the best case study that matches to my pain and my solution. And the problem is human sellers, while they have every intention to do those things and go through all these training courses, they suck. They suck at, no offense to human sellers, but we have capacity limitations as humans to be able to turn that around instantly and pull that slide in or pull that case study in. But the beauty of AI is it doesn't have capacity limitations. In fact, when you're a horizontal solution that sells everything to everyone, you can pull in that right piece of information at the right time and move the conversation forward. And oh, by the way, you train the AI to ask the hard question. Do you have budget? Are you the champion? Who do I need? All those things that the sellers are afraid to do, right? So I think, you know, it's a better experience for the buyer. So that goes to the sale. And then think about you have new products that you want to share and you have new features. Do you want to get a CSM on the line every single time? They're acting like a robot, right? They're just repeating what the new feature is. What if the superhuman could step in and say, hey, can I share how this works with what you're doing today? I see how you're using the product today. It has infinite capacity, knows what the product usage, knows what you can upsell, and again, have these relevant conversations. So for me, the end goal is to create a better buyer experience and a better customer experience by giving them control in every channel, show up in Zoom, show up on the web, show up in the product. That is going to be when we win. And I think that's what we're solving for. And it gets me so excited, clearly.
I think that the part of that, though, that a lot of marketers are not yet wrapping their head around is that AI is a super technology, and that's a historical term about certain technologies that behave in certain ways. And in this case, it's talking about the fact that it's used defensively as well as offensively. So you're seeing AI-powered filters now in enterprise IT email servers that essentially will completely intercept all email from marketing automation, right? The shift in power in the relationship towards the buyer, with the buyer asking the questions, right? The fact that personalization is being done and will be done, right, by the buyer, not by the seller, right, is really significant. The power of the buyer bots that I'm personally invested in, right, is stunning to me. I'm mainly an investor in those just because I want to see what's going on, right? There is no funnel, and there actually never really was a funnel, and that's being encoded. That reality is now being enforced by the buyers. The level of disintermediation of traditional channels. I think that in less than 2 years, we're going to see marketing at B2B marketing as we know it today. It's going to be nothing but brand and reputation, CX, okay? Let's call it CX, and the provisioning of really awesome, highly trustworthy information via an LLM attached to a URL. So that means your website, what's the point of creativity on the website if it's mainly being accessed by bots, right? You also have to really understand that the primary buy risk for B2B is risk, and that the customer sees the vendor as the risk that's being remediated. So that is now really being encoded into the process. And so I think it's just going to be 52 card pickup. I think that what the parts of marketing that will be around in B2B within 2 years, 3 at the outside, right, is going to be a very small fraction of what we see today.
So that's a super
I mean,
fun competition. Let's double down a little bit more on that, because there's there's a transition period that needs to happen. There's also going to have to be, like you said, you still have to create content, right? You still have to feed an LLM. You're still going to have to create awareness. You're still going to have the ability to showcase your brand versus other brands to help feed those elements, right? So there's a lot of things that we still do that the benefit, it won't be as visible, right? But the need is going to be there to get in there. So how do we think the funnel and the whole kind of techniques we do today are going to evolve, right? And you're still going to have to do some to maintain them while create new ones, right?
but it can be AI driven content, right? So a lot of it can be created to be hyper personalized based on the experience the buyer is having. I think that's a world we're not seeing yet today. I don't think we've seen a lot of tools that will create like decks on the fly and like demos on the fly, like we can do them, but they're there, they're working, but it's, that's where the future is going. It's right. And then, like you said, it's the agent to agent. And as well, like Mark, what you're saying, it's like the buyer agent talking to the seller agent and then bringing that down. But then there is a time where there is a human who makes a decision. And I think there still will be a human in the loop to make the decision, but they want to have control and get the answers the way they want to get them. And there's still like the multimodal pieces of content that I think today we aren't seeing. It's text-based, what you're talking about, of bringing all that information to get today. We haven't seen it in the full multimodal approach. And I think that's the future.
No, I think there's a lot of truth to that, although I don't think that the time frame is nearly as elastic as some people think it is. I think it's going to happen a lot faster than a lot of people are prepared for. The bot that I saw most recently, totally stealth. Well, you'll never know that it was sniffing your site, right? It can evaluate everything you've ever said about your product, your company, whatever, against known facts, make a judgment on the reliability of your representations, elevate you to the next phase, right? And ultimately will make a recommendation to a buyer team that knows that the AI knows more than they do about the whole thing. And so if you just think about normal human behavior, de-risking their own situation, right, they're going to typically go with the recommendation from AI. And one of the things that we've already seen is we make it generally pretty high into the consideration and finalist kind of stage in our company. But increasingly, the AI is saying, this is what we're willing to pay you for this. Do you want the job or not? Right? And if you say, well, I really feel like, we need to negotiate. Nope, not negotiating. This is it. Right? And if you don't say yes, we'll go to the next guy. Right?
That
And
means
it's
you don't have the best product, though. It's not enough. You haven't done a good enough job selling. The bot or whoever is doing the selling. If my salespeople come back and say, well, they're gonna do this or walk, I'm like, we got to go back in and sell. Like they don't understand what we do.
Yeah, I understand that, but I don't think what's being covered in that statement is the extent of the disintermediation from real people that will happen in the buying motion. It's just, I mean, look, the last of company after company after company in research has said the least productive time that our employees spend is in buying things. So they don't want their employees being marketed to, and they don't want their employees, spending more than X time in buying. So they're going to do everything possible to mitigate that entire part of it, and they're going to use bots to do it.
I wonder if that's true of also the level of complexity of the software. Because, for example, last year, the marketing team in my organization, we went and switched from Microsoft Dynamics as our marketing platform to HubSpot. So many people involved, so many conversations, understanding our environment, what our goals are, like both people on their side and certainly on our side, lots of people involved, even including sales and finance and so on. I don't see a world yet where AI is going to replace that completely. But to Amanda's point, I think helping us get the right information at the right time that's tailored for us, I think AI is very fast going that direction. But then the other hand, we bought Asana for project management and tracking. That's something where it's like a low cost purchase, easy to implement, easy to set up. We don't need to actually ever talk to a human being to do that. It's like something you could just have, you can automate, put in a credit card and so on. So to me, there's a big difference that I hate the depends answer because it feels like it's non-committal, but it's true. I think it depends on the spectrum of where we are in that whole B2B cycle, like complex versus simple. And maybe we'll get to the complex at some point, but I feel like we're a couple of years away from that at least, if not more. And I think also just the way humans are built, you want that relation. You want to look people in the eye and know you can trust them. They're going to be there for you if shit goes down in some way. So that's part of it. When you put
So actually,
your reputation on the line as a CMO or something, you're like, who am I going to talk to?
I have asked quite a few people that question.
Yeah.
And the most common answer that I hear back is some form of, I have lost track of how many people I have looked in the eyeball who have lied to me.
Right? Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I love it when
That's a
people
sad
ask
statement.
me if my superhumans hallucinate, because my response back is so simple. Do your salespeople hallucinate? And do they do it nefariously because they know they're hallucinating, right? So the AI is doing its best to answer, and if you don't have, and so not 99.9% of the time, she's on guardrails, the AI is not going to hallucinate, especially if you build this correctly. There are ways to do this today. We don't have to worry about that anymore. But people still worry about it. And I'm like, your reps are out there doing that every day. They're doing the best. They're I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus, but they're trying to get the deal done. They've got a job to do and they don't have all the information. And they know if they go back and ask for information and then come back to the conversation, they've lost the deal because time kills all deals. Right. So if they don't give an answer that's just good enough to get it over the line and get to the next stage, they're losing, right? Because a week will go by, 2 weeks will go by, and then these cycles expand. The other thing we're seeing with our superhumans, which is kind of a residual effect, which it kind of eye-opening for me, is that we're building them. Our first use case is inbound. They're on the website, they're answering questions, they're giving the pitch, they're giving the demo, qualifying. But what they're helping is in the sales cycle, they're helping the salespeople. So when I was selling to one of the biggest CRM companies, which we closed recently, which is really super exciting. Every time the CMO and the SVP of marketing said they're doing this, and then I had to get on the phone with 10 other people, 10 times, right? But in that process, they would go talk to the superhuman before they got on the phone with me and ask their questions oh, how do you integrate with our technology? How many calls do you have? Do you connect to the opportunity or this, right? All these technical questions and all these legal questions and compliance and SOC 2, the superhuman would answer the questions and then shorten the sales cycle. So every salesperson wants that, right? They don't want to get back on the line and have to answer those nuanced questions to get to the finish line. So it really helps shorten sales cycles from these archaic 6-9 months. That's not good for the buyer or the seller to go out that long.
Think of them as more like a twin of your salesperson, right? Who is actually answering them as part of your buying committee, because you're not in that place where the decision is being made. So they don't have to send an email and wait for the follow-up, but you have a twin that you sent with them. They can reach out and talk to them. And I think it becomes even more powerful as not just answering questions, but actually demonstrating the product to you, right? The whole sales cycle comes down even further because not everybody is in the decision-making process at that point. So when they are in that sitting in a conference room making the decision, and you have a twin that's representing you as well there, right? Also, one more thing I would add to that point from Robin's mentioned is too many people are involved in the decision making. The part that we always miss out is the opportunity cost that goes in to purchase something. Like you buy something for like, as you said, like 50K, like a bit of product. There is like a 4 to 5 months of buying committee involved in making the decision. And people just forget that there's so much loss to the company at that 4 months in buying decision, right? From a
Right.
finance person's involved, controllers involved, the product decisions involved, POCs involved, so many people. Look at the number of hours you're wasting and the cost to that. And somewhere people just forget that and focus on what they're buying. And it hurts when they're buying a smaller, cheaper product and they're spending too much time on those things. That process will completely flip with these with the AI avatars and AI agents coming in my opinion.
So we've
People will
talked,
start realizing that.
yeah, this is great. We talked a lot about agents and agentic and stuff. So let's talk about then, as a CMO in an organization, how do we need to think about restructuring our team, training them, the organization structure, the skills we're going to need, right? So you're already talking about the buyer journeys is disruptive. Mark, you talked about how, brand and community are going to be super important. So what does our org structure today look like? And then what do we need to move it to?
Well, I think that a lot surprisingly, and I didn't originally think this. Okay, so I've kind of evolved into this position based on the data and the analytics and what I see. I think there's going to be whole areas of organizations. So not just picking on marketing, right? As we know them, as we have known them for a long time, that will either cease to exist or will cease to exist in a form in which we recognize them, right? I think web, for example, is an exemplar of this. The whole transaction hinges on de-risking the decision. So they're going to the absolute essence of what matters, which is quality of information, reliability of information, CX, and your reputation for really great CX.
I mean,
And
I think
everything else is kind of a subsidiary idea.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Mark. I think we're moving to a world where if you don't do these things, like there's the opportunity cost and you're going to fall behind, right? So, and it's not, we're solving for growth, right? Who doesn't have a growth problem or challenge or opportunity, right? We're solving for growth, but it's also efficiency. Like we can't throw money at it anymore the way we used to. And unfortunately, humans are the most expensive thing on our P&L. So we really have to think about in a world that just the cash isn't where it used to be. And we can't spend $4 to acquire a $1 customer. Like we're talking about these long sales cycles and the cost on the buyer side as well. I mean, and not to mention the cost, like once you get into procurement. I mean, please, somebody out there solve for, let's have all like the leaders in tech like come up with like what are like the minimum requirements, like what are we going to say on both sides of the procurement cycle, and just like cut out the BS. Like what do you ask for when you're the buyer and what do you ask me to seller, and let's just agree. Because why do we go through 6 months into procurement as well? That is not helping anyone. So I know we don't talk about that, but man, that's a waste of money. It's killing me. Somebody needs to solve that. And I know there's like tools, but like it needs to be all the best leaders coming together and say like, we agree, this is it. This is like, just like there's a YC safe note. Everybody agrees, oh, that's the YC safe note, great. Like nobody even looks at it. Can we do the same thing?
I think you have to always, though, come back to some key rules of the road. And that is that there is no better way to improve efficiency in anything than to improve its effectiveness.
Yeah, you
Because
have to be better than humans today. Like these bots on both sides have to, like if we are just as good as humans, we would not survive. I would not sell a single deal. Like when I'm responding and have the accuracy of a human and the recall of a human and the conversation of a human, I need to The superhumans need to know, have the best sales methodologies in their brain, be able to like rat off spiced challenger, med pick, have all of those things going through their head, bring in the right information, recall within 3 seconds. If a human like takes 5 seconds to respond, nobody has a problem with it. But if my superhuman sits there and like thinks for a second, oh, that wasn't natural enough. Like, wait, what? Like, and then you have slow talkers and fast talkers. And so do you want her to interrupt you? We're giving space to make sure, like I just interrupted Mark rudely. You don't want the superhuman to do that, right? When they're coming in. So there's all these AGI problems we're solving for, which are so super exciting.
That was
but it
an
has to be higher
interruption.
than a human. What?
That was an interruption. I thought that was just conversation.
Well, I felt like I interrupted you. I felt bad. I thought you had paused. I thought you were done. And you weren't done. And so, but that's where humans suck. But the superhuman can't do that, right? Like, it was just super exciting problems to solve.
You say it sucks. I think it's great because that shows that there's a flow to a conversation. It's not, sometimes these conversations you have with bots are so weird. It's like you speak and then it processes and it's very weird. On the org chart thing, I'm convinced more than ever that anything to do with hard skills will get disrupted by AI. And it already is, obviously, but it's going to get disrupted super fast in the next 2-3 years. And those people who are only relying on their hard skills at work are going to see a severe disruption. Anything to do with soft skills are still far from being disrupted. It will get disrupted in different ways, and it for sure will, but not as much. So creativity, communication, teamwork, being able to lead well, all these kind of things, I think there's still going to be a strong need for you. But anything to do with synthesizing data, doing reporting, analytics, it's going to get disrupted. I mean, it's interesting. So here's a real world AI example. One of the things that's always been the hardest in my career is like figuring out how do you get the right competitive information when you're in a competitive space to your sales team to win more deals, right? At Salesforce, at Box, at LinkedIn, all these companies are like always honestly a hassle, pain in the ass. And you can either spend a lot of time researching or you hire people to do it. Now with AI, honestly, you can do it instantly. Like my team just signed up for ChatGPT deep research, and we can get rid of our competitive agency now. We don't have to spend 20 hours researching a competitive deal. Like we can do that instantly. That's a beautiful example of where this becomes a superpower for humans to focus on what they're best at, the creative part of product marketing, branding, positioning, messaging, all that kind of stuff. So anything to do with hard skills, it's going to get disrupted. It already actually is. Yeah.
I agree, Robin. I think that perhaps the biggest impact that AI will have in the short term, which probably none of us are actually really prepared for, is the level of transparency and accountability that it brings. The fact that we have all grown up with a zone of ambiguity in which we are able to bob and weave and do our thing. And that zone, that gray circle is shrinking, and that far more will not only be known, but be knowable than has ever been the case. And if you're a bullshitter, it will reveal that, very clearly.
I can't help but think of politics here, but like, do people actually care? Because clearly we don't. Like, like we're voting into, I'm sorry, I don't need to go political, but I will, because I mean, we clearly don't care people bullshitting. Like humans aren't, I'm just so, I don't know how that really like comes in, but I can't help but think
facts, right?
we love
emotions
light,
over
but nobody
facts.
gives a shit, so like we'll still be sold on whatever it is. Yeah, like that.
Let me throw in a little challenge here, because so far what I've heard, and it's quite interesting as I listen to all of you, is that we're talking about AI being this augmentation thing to our existing process, right? But Mark, you're just kind of teasing this idea that I think it's going to change a lot more quickly, right? So if you go back to Robin, your example of competitive intelligence, you took an old system and you put some AI on it, right? I don't think that is going to last very much longer in the cycles of AI technology.
I agree.
I think we're going to leapfrog this. And I'm thinking about, like, you keep talking about demoing of software. I'm like, why do you even demo a software? I'll have an environment set up for you integrated with your data as part of the sales cycle. Like, I don't need to have a proof of concept. It'll be instantly done, right? So I think in marketing, when we start to think about, our org structure and our changes, we keep thinking about, taking our existing world and adding some efficiency to it. And I think the mindset needs to be, what's the leapfrog that this new stuff will open, right? So like deep search, if you haven't played with it, if you haven't played with compute use, these are going to rapidly change the needs of, do I even need APIs, right? Or do the AI agents talk to each other? And there's talk about them coming up with their own language to share data, right? So there's this kind of next phase that I think we need to talk about more. So when you guys think about tools and next kind of phases, what are you thinking of?
I think the logistics are going to be the thing, right? I mean, and here's where the problem is right now. Statistically speaking, only about 3 to 4% of corporate data is worth a damn, right? It's not usable. In fact, all the cases around fiduciary duty, expanded fiduciary duty to officers, right, that are being filed right now, okay, are about data quality issues, data accessibility issues, holding companies back from being able to adopt full-blown enterprise AI tools, losing competitive advantage, things like that, right? So the idea, for example, even though I love it as much as anybody on this call, that you will be able to auto attach your software to people's data as part of the sales process is right now a fantasy, right? It's just not happening. And so that's a major limitation that any CDO, and that's who I work with a lot, right? Any CDO will tell you that that's the reality of the situation, right? So we are like, one of the reasons why Robin loves his CI tool, okay, is that he's not having to feed any data into it, right? The magic of it is that it conjures all this knowledge out of the ether painlessly for he and his team, right? As soon
Yeah,
as you get to other forms of AI, though, that's not the case.
I think that only applies. I think that applies in when you're talking about PII and sensitive data. Others, like we can spin up a superhuman just by scanning your website. We can see what you sell, all your products, and she can sell better than the US rep. Like I could do that. We can do that pretty quickly for folks. So I think it just depends on what we're talking about and what level of data that we're bringing in. But going back to like the
And
original
also
question,
who we're talking about, right?
100%. Yeah,
You would
yeah.
not
But
be
first
able to do that
principles
with
of all
Oracle,
of this is if
right?
we get back to a world of first principles, like you think about like Floodgate, Mike Maples talks about the concept of backcasting, right? Looking into the future. And like, if you think about when we got into an Uber, like whoever said like, oh yeah, I'm going to jump in a stranger's car. I said, F no, like, no way am I jumping into a stranger's car. No way am I letting somebody sleep in my bed. But actually this summer, somebody just offered me a ridiculous amount of money for my house. I'm like, that pays my mortgage for 2 years. Like, sure, for 3 months, like I'll do it. Right. So we say yes to things because the efficiency and the convenience and the benefits outweigh like the ick factor. And I think there's a lot of it right now, like all these systems of record especially in MarTech and sales tech are to basically enable humans to go get at one piece of data and to glue it together. And all of that agentic workflow is going to replace that. So I don't think we can even, I can't wrap my head around like where we're going to be. We need to house the data so that, like Mark said, agents to agents can talk to each other, but the humans will want to come in potentially into this solution, have a conversation as well, but do it with their kids running on their lap and not have to put a suit jacket on and like button up to talk to a salesperson. Like who wants to do that? Nobody. Right. So I think everything is like ripe for disruption right now, which is why this is such an exciting time to be a part of what's happening, especially in sales and marketing.
So let's
One of
have a
the
little.
things,
People always want practical advice, right? So how about everybody list off your favorite one or two or three tools you're using today? Because, I'm sure you're all playing with something fun. And what are you using it for?
I mean, we're building a lot of
I'm
our own. Like, I think I'm looking to my team to say, replace yourself. And if you replace yourself, I'm trying to find a way, it's not done yet. So just full transparency out there where I can accelerate all their vesting. If you can fully replace yourself, you get your vesting accelerated but like building I think building the tools that are helping in your individual job is where people should be looking, like really focusing, like how can I replace my tasks today so that you can level up and do the tasks that AI can't do.
Yeah, I think one of the themes that we had in our company today is scaling up. Like what Amanda said is like, how do you make yourself more efficient, 10x yourself by using AI tools, right? We use a lot of them. I mean, like not just marketing. If I can name a few, like it's like even from an engineering, I think you've all heard probably Cursor, who can write code for you, right? Something that has been profound change in this year a lot. So we use that a lot in our tech teams. In the marketing stack, we use AI SDR on our side, actually, with not fully automated. We use with a human in the loop to have that kind of empathy in terms of the conversation we're going to have there as well. We use copy.ai for generating content and everything. Of course, we use our own Storyline tool to build out these demos for our customers as well. And we use support tools we use Intercom Fin AI. In fact, we were looking for hiring additional support folks as well. And in fact, we didn't go ahead because it's come along a lot in the last 1 year. If you look at it with a lot of data that we've been training with it itself, it's fantastic in how it resolves some smaller support tickets as well. So there is tools used in every function. And if you're not doing that, actually, you're like lagging behind in our opinion, right? So I think we use it across. These are some of the tools we use quickly. Yeah.
Awesome.
So I
Yeah,
was part of a research team that did a paper last fall on the economic impact of Gen AI. And one of the things, I mean, at some level, this won't be a surprise, but it was for a lot of people. When you apply it to a bell curve of population, right, in terms of how it's used, yes, there are efficiency gains of approximately 20. And that is more or less pervasive across that curve. Where you really started to see major economic impact was as a multiplier on effectiveness and innovation and all that kind of stuff in your highest potential employees, which was off the charts. The messy middle, you still get a lot, but not as much. The people on the far end that you're probably going to riff at some point, right? Not much of a multiplier at all there. But the big lesson here, right, on AI in general, all 4 types, right, not just Gen, is that the real upside is in how it makes human beings bionic effectively, not in how it replaces large swaths of them. And in all of this, right, we cannot lose sight of being humanists.
But maybe it's time to reskill. And like we're gonna lose certain jobs and we have to reskill. Like
Sure,
we don't have, yeah, like I think we're doing everyone a disservice by saying that jobs aren't going to be replaced. We're trying to make people feel good in the sales function and say, don't worry, it's just going to elevate you. Like that's actually not what's going to happen.
Yeah, but
and people need to really be thinking about where their world is going. And it's not kind, I feel, to do that. I'm not saying you're not being kind. There's this whole like, oh, it's only going to elevate, it's going to make the best better. And I'm like, no. Like if you are an inbound SDR, your job is gone. If you're a sales engineer, your job is probably gone like in the next year. So we need to all rethink. Like my neighbor was a data scientist. His job is gone and now he's a prompt engineer. I was like, you need to rethink about what you're doing. This is you don't have that job anymore. So yeah, I've
seen this over and over on time, right? So the example I always like to give to people is that, if you think about the banking industry, when we brought ATMs, we said it was the end of small branches and this is the end of tellers. Well, there are still tellers today, right? Fewer, but there's still tellers today. There are more branches than ever. And if you look at the banking industry, there's more jobs than ever created, right? And so with this change, the CEO of Anthropic talks about how he believes that they've already created 15 million new jobs with AI, right? And these are all AI enabled or AI purposeful jobs, right? So I don't think in any of my careers, and anyone here who's got gray hairs would ever say that I've held the same position for 30 years, right? We
Correct.
don't
Yeah.
live in that world. And so this replacement is the wrong vocabulary, right? We are augmenting or moving into higher value or other types of skills. And this AI whole change is going to create new opportunities that we never thought about, right? And Amanda, you said something I think a lot of people don't quite understand enough yet is that little statement that says, my team is building our solutions. I strongly believe there's going to be a big world where we are building our own tools and not acquiring them. So this idea that I need to go and find somebody to buy something is going to become a little bit less and less if I have the skill sets and the knowledge to use Cursor and other tools that Ellen was talking about that would enable me to build more, right? So I think some things are drastically going to change. Now I'm going to ask the same question that Julie asked me to the panelists here to wrap things up is that, what is your one prediction in 2025? I don't think we need to look out too much further because I think, Mark, you already hit it on the head. Things are changing very quickly, right? And I think if we look at this year, we're going to see more leaps and bounds, right? And if you're not playing with the tools and getting accustomed to it, you're going to be far, far behind. But what is everyone's one prediction of something big that's going to happen in 2025?
For me, I think it's hyper personalization is going to become really real in here in 25. I mean, it's been getting close, and I feel like it's been building the last couple of years, but it's been kind of honestly hit or miss. Some of the stuff I've seen coming out now of the startup ecosystem, I advise a few companies who are in this space, super impressive, where you can reach out at scale. Let's say you get, a webinar and you have 1,000 people come, and then being able to reach out at scale to all those with a very personalized message about what they care about, their industry, their background. I feel like we're finally getting there, and I think this is going to make a big game changer at the top of the funnel. So I think these tools here that can do that and prove that they can do it well, game changer for top of funnel and getting into it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I shared the mistake you already saw today, where I already got an email from somebody saying, "Congratulations on your session." Obviously, it hasn't even happened yet, and they're thanking me with some AI, right? So I was like, okay,
Oh,
no thanks.
maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
That went a little too quickly, but you can already see the effects of it. But yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. How about you, Mark?
I think that like if this is maybe where a compare contrast with consumer is, it has some clarity to it, right? I think that consumers who want a personalized environment with Hermes or whoever, right, are going to get that in spades, and it's going to be truly wonderful, right? On the B2B side, though, all the evidence is that this technology, meaning AI, is being actively weaponized from a defensive posture like nothing else we have seen recently, right? And so what that's saying is a lot of companies don't want this stuff anymore, right? I mean, the opening preamble of GDPR cites B2B marketers as the whole reason why a long moribund regulatory system was brought back to life, right? I mean, what does that tell you, right? And so I think that you're going to see a lot more focus on effectiveness. The more is more thing, got to know more about the person I'm talking to. What if the person you're talking to doesn't want to be known, right? Which is increasingly the case, or their employer doesn't want them to be known, which is even more the case, right? So I think that what we're going to see towards the end of this year and early 2026 is it's going to be a very, very challenging situation for marketers because it's going to be the end of something. It's going to be kind of the king is dead, long live the king, right? That's going to be the transition in a nutshell.
Okay, I can't help but just comment on not wanting to be known. I do believe that maybe our personal information we don't want to be known. Sorry, Mark, I always keep it spicy with you here, but I believe buyers actually want to feel heard and want an empathetic experience and want to hear how you're going to solve my problems, not just pitch me your solution. And so that is going to Robin's point about hyper personalization. But to the question, I think two things are going to happen. when we're going to move away from a fear-based mentality to a love-based mentality, to like acceptance, and that this is the future and this can actually help me. I think we are in this like fear world. And two, I think we're moving into a world of AGI. So we're moving from, I think agents is going to be yesterday's news. So I think agents is simple task-based workflows, like Mark Benioff said in his keynote. That is yesterday. I think we're moving to a world of AGI where it truly understands. It has empathy, has EQ, it has IQ, it knows when to speak. It can carry on a conversation. It can be always on, available in any channel, and delight the buyers at the end of the day. Provide a 10x better buyer experience than what we're putting people through today. The world we put people through is archaic, it's expensive, it costs money on the seller side. Like, oh my God, the shit we put, like how many people at the problem to sell one piece of software, and like what we go to our website, you have to dig around and find the solution, and then you talk to an SDR who's 20 years old and tried to qualify you, and then you get to a salesperson, and the salesperson then can't answer the technical questions. Like, tell me that this is the way anybody wants it, and on either side of the equation. So I think we're definitely moving to, I am so excited to solve for AGI, to solve the hard problems, the nuanced problems that will make this work. And yeah, I think agents are yesterday. So that's my prediction.
I agree with that. I agree with that, but right, who's controlling the personalization is key. So
Yeah, I think in some cases the buyer side.
Hold on. We have an LLM driven site. Okay. What does that mean? It means that we see thousands of questions a day, and people are asking questions in which they need a context aware answer, and they get it, right? And so we are helping them, we are collaborating with them, or more accurately, the LLM is, right? Collaborating with them to give them a personalized answer, but they're calling the tune.
Yeah,
right?
I think the control has to be in the buyer's. I don't disagree with the control being in the buyer's pocket, but I think the buyer side agent only really works. Like, I'm not going to go build myself a buyer side agent for everything that I buy. If I'm like a repeat purchase person, or I've got a long sales cycle, maybe we'll invest in that. Like some of the shorter purchases, maybe not, where you just want to get in, get done. Like I'm buying a $10,000, like whatever it is. It just really depends on the product and the solution we're selling, but I'm with you. Like, we need to organize our data in a way that the agents and the superhumans and AGI could talk to each other, versus it just being like the human to data, or it's really data to data, but allow the human to come in when it's relevant.
All right, we're gonna have to wrap this up. So I'm gonna just say, and I'm gonna give you the final thought, Nailing, in 1 second. But Julia, thanks for putting on the conference. Thank you, Robin, Mark, Nailing, and Amanda for the conversation. I love it. I love that there's debate and different opinions. And I'm gonna give Nailing the last final thought to wrap up our AI-led marketing panel. And thank you for everyone for listening to us today.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think I'll agree to the AGI part, which Amanda mentioned. I think the way it will happen to me is like we have a team of agents today, right? That everybody's building to do a certain task. What I do predict and happen in the end of 2025, early 2026 will be agents building more agents for you, and that's going to snowball into more of these things. That's how the AGI will be achieved, where you train your agent to build additional agents for you to to complete your task itself. And to me, that is what the AI-led motion will be a lot more. And I do see that happening a lot more in this year itself. Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Jonathan. What's the best way for our community to support you? And let's transition to the next fireside chat. Jonathan.
Sorry, I didn't hear that last part.
Yeah, thank you. And what's the best way for our community to support you?
Oh, absolutely. So please reach out to us on Demand Spring on LinkedIn or Twitter. We would love to hear from you. We love to have these discussions. I think the one thing that everyone should take away from the next 3 days in this conference is there are no answers. There are only strong opinions today, and the future will tell us what happens. But between now and the future, we need to just keep experimenting, keep trying new things, and don't be afraid. So absolutely. Thank you so much, Julia.
Our pleasure.